Have you ever imagined a scene so haunting, you'd never forget it? Picture a German shepherd swimming endlessly in the open ocean, waves crashing over his tired face, with a tiny orange kitten desperately clinging to his head, eyes wide with fear and trust. How did they get here, and what heartbreaking story led them into this vast blue wilderness? If your heart beats faster at the thought of miracles like this, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share, because every act of kindness helps rewrite stories waiting to be told. The sky above the waters off Carolina stretched out in an endless canvas of gray and soft lavender, the morning clouds drifting gently like quiet ghosts over the vast ocean. Jacob Thompson, a lean, thoughtful young fisherman of 28, maneuvered his small boat named the Sea Whisperer with practiced ease. With sun-bleached sandy hair and clear blue eyes that mirrored the ocean itself, Jacob had always felt more at home here on the open water than anywhere else on Earth. He'd left the harbor before dawn, guided only by the soft murmuring of waves beneath the boat. The day had been quiet so far, almost unusually so. Hours passed with only the rhythmic sound of the ocean and the distant cries of seagulls for company. But just as Jacob began to resign himself to returning empty-handed, a strange form caught his eye. Squinting against the sunlight, Jacob leaned over the rail, heart quickening as he spotted something swimming in the distance, something small and fragile amid the waves. At first, he thought it was debris from a passing ship, but as he drew closer, disbelief filled his chest. He throttled the boat forward and reached hastily for his binoculars, focusing with urgency. There, amid the relentless waves, was a German shepherd, strong yet clearly nearing the brink of exhaustion. Its dark coat was soaked and clung to its muscular frame, highlighting both strength and vulnerability. The dog's amber eyes, bright with determination yet shadowed by fear, stared forward, desperately fixed on survival. And atop his head, nestled precariously between the large pointed ears, trembled a tiny orange kitten. Its fur was drenched, clinging to a small, shivering body, its delicate paws gripping the dog's head with all its fragile strength. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. How could they be here, so far from shore, alone in this cruel, vast ocean? Without hesitation, he brought the boat closer, cutting the engine as gently as he could, afraid the noise might startle the struggling animals. "Hold on, buddy," he called softly, voice quivering slightly, a mixture of reassurance and disbelief. "I've got you." He dropped a small rope ladder over the side, his hands shaking with urgency. With practiced precision, he reached into the water, extending strong, calloused hands toward the exhausted dog. The German shepherd, sensing the offer of help, managed a final burst of effort, paddling weakly but purposefully toward the boat. The kitten's mewling cry was barely audible over the rush of water as they approached, but the sound cut deep into Jacob's heart. Reaching the side, Jacob caught the dog by his thick fur, gently hoisting him upward. The shepherd's body was heavy, and Jacob's muscles burned with effort, but adrenaline carried him through. Finally, with one last heave, he lifted both animals onto the deck. They landed together in a wet heap of fur and trembling limbs. Immediately, Jacob knelt beside them, brushing water gently away from their faces. The dog lay panting heavily, his eyes half closed in exhaustion, while the tiny kitten nestled even closer against the dog's fur, small chest rising and falling rapidly. Jacob's eyes stung, moved beyond words at their bond. "You're safe now," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "You're both safe." After retrieving towels from the small storage below deck, Jacob wrapped them carefully, mindful of their fragile state. He noticed the shepherd's paws were red and raw, the pads nearly worn from hours of paddling. The kitten, still trembling, watched Jacob warily with enormous amber eyes, pressed tightly against the dog's fur. "You two must have quite a story," Jacob murmured softly, gently stroking the dog's head. The shepherd responded faintly, lifting his head just enough to nuzzle Jacob's palm with a weary, grateful gesture. Slowly, the boat turned toward the coast, the shoreline, a distant, thin line of promise against the horizon. Jacob checked on them often as he steered, his heart swelling with both concern and relief. These two unlikely companions had survived against impossible odds, holding on to each other amid the unforgiving sea. He felt deeply honored that fate had placed them in his path. As the coastline grew larger, painted gold by the afternoon sun, Jacob glanced back again. The shepherd's breathing had steadied, his large frame gently rising and falling in rhythm, the tiny orange kitten tucked safely beneath his chin. Jacob whispered softly, voice breaking slightly, "I promise, whatever happened out there, you're never going to face it alone again." In response, as if understanding every word, the German shepherd's tail moved faintly, a weak but unmistakable sign of trust and gratitude. Jacob smiled softly, eyes misting over, feeling the profound beginnings of a connection stronger and deeper than he had ever expected. Jacob carefully lifted Duke and Pumpkin from the boat, feeling their fragile trust settle into his arms like something precious and breakable. As his boots touched solid ground, a sense of relief mingled with sadness filled him, knowing the journey back had been only the first step toward understanding what had happened to these two unlikely survivors. The marina at Cedar Cove was quiet, a small coastal town nestled along the Carolina shoreline, known for friendly faces and close-knit community bonds. Jacob carried Duke toward his old blue pickup truck, its paint worn by salt and sun. Pumpkin nestled protectively beneath the dog's chin. Once home, Jacob placed the animals gently onto the soft woolen blankets he'd laid on the porch, the afternoon sun casting a warm glow over their still weary forms. He moved carefully, voice gentle as he murmured comforting words. Duke lay quietly, his dark, expressive eyes following Jacob's every movement. Pumpkin, still pressed against Duke, watched cautiously but made no attempt to flee. Jacob filled shallow bowls with fresh water, watching as Duke slowly dipped his muzzle, drinking deeply yet warily, always mindful of Pumpkin's tiny form beneath him. It was then that Jacob first noticed something, a flash of metal beneath Duke's tangled fur. Leaning closer, he brushed the dense coat aside gently, heart tightening at the sight. Beneath the thick, wet fur lay a collar, frayed from the sea, but still clearly inscribed. Jacob traced the worn engraving with his fingertip, reading the words aloud with a sense of gravity. The Miller family. A chill passed through him, unsettling yet familiar. He remembered now, with sudden clarity, the whispers around town, rumors he'd heard but dismissed as tragic gossip. Just a few weeks earlier, news had reached Cedar Cove of a family lost to the sea, their sailing trip ending abruptly in tragedy. There had been no survivors, or so everyone believed. Jacob's heart ached deeply, recognizing now the enormity of what Duke and Pumpkin had endured. They were survivors of something unthinkable, remnants of a family whose story had ended far too soon. Unable to shake the heaviness from his chest, Jacob turned to his computer, searching news reports with trembling fingers. Article after article appeared, each repeating the tragic details. The Millers, a young American family from Wilmington, had taken their sailboat out for a weekend journey, intending to explore the beauty of the open ocean, a common passion among coastal families. But an unexpected storm had overtaken their boat, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. Rescue teams had searched tirelessly, but after days, the family was presumed lost forever. There had been no mention of their beloved pets, no hope held out for their survival. As Jacob scrolled through family photos, his gaze paused on one image, a smiling couple, Peter and Emily Miller, both in their early 30s, vibrant and full of life, standing with their 7-year-old daughter, Sarah. Sarah's face, framed by golden curls, was lit with innocence and laughter as she hugged Duke, his ears perked and alert, his stance protective. Pumpkin perched delicately on Sarah's shoulder, eyes bright and curious. The picture filled Jacob with profound sorrow and wonder. These were not just pets, they were family, deeply loved and now forever scarred by tragedy. Jacob leaned back, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Oh, Duke," he whispered softly, looking down into those loyal eyes. "You've been through so much, haven't you?" Duke stared back, quiet but resolute, a silent strength radiating from him even now. Pumpkin shifted slightly, a soft, fragile purr rumbling in the tiny chest, as though seeking comfort from Jacob's gentle presence. A newfound sense of purpose blossomed within Jacob. He would ensure that Duke and Pumpkin's story, the story of the Millers, would never be forgotten. He could not undo their pain, nor erase the shadows of loss, but he could honor their memories, bringing healing to those who remained. Carefully, he knelt beside Duke and Pumpkin once more, placing a steady hand upon Duke's head, feeling warmth and trust passing between them. "You're safe here," he murmured softly, the words heavy with sincerity. "And I'll never let anyone forget the family that loved you." As the evening sun dipped lower, painting the sky with gold and crimson, Duke rested his head lightly against Jacob's hand, accepting the promise with quiet dignity. The memories of tragedy could never fade completely, yet here on this porch, amid the quiet rustle of wind and the scent of salt air, something fragile and beautiful had begun to emerge from sorrow, hope. Days passed slowly at the cabin in Cedar Cove, each sunrise bringing with it a quiet sense of healing but also lingering sorrow. Duke, the German shepherd whose sleek, black and tan coat had finally begun to dry and regain its sheen, rarely moved from his position at the porch's edge, eyes solemnly fixed toward the endless blue horizon. His proud, gentle demeanor now seemed clouded by grief, the stoic mask of a dog burdened by loss. Beside him, Pumpkin, the fragile little orange kitten, nestled close, her tiny form trembling occasionally, seeking comfort from Duke's warmth. Their shared silence spoke volumes of a bond formed through tragedy and survival, one that Jacob felt deeply but could never fully understand. Jacob Thompson watched the animals carefully, his heart heavy with empathy. Tall and lean with gentle blue eyes and sun-lightened hair, Jacob's quiet manner concealed a depth of sensitivity that had always made him feel attuned to the unspoken emotions around him. He prepared fresh meals each morning and evening, soft chicken and nutritious broth, placing the dishes close to the animals. Yet Duke merely sniffed the food, turning his muzzle away in silent protest, as if to show Jacob that no nourishment could yet fill the emptiness he felt inside. Pumpkin, sensing Duke's quiet grief, waited patiently beside him, unwilling to eat alone. Late afternoons became a ritual of silent companionship, Jacob sitting near the porch steps, respecting the distance Duke seemed to need. Jacob would softly speak about the gentle tides and warm summer evenings, carefully sharing memories of his own childhood to fill the quiet spaces, hoping his voice might soothe their unseen wounds. Yet Duke's dark eyes stayed locked on the waves, a sad, distant look suggesting he still searched the vast ocean for those he had lost. Occasionally, Pumpkin would climb gently onto Duke's paws, curling up as if her fragile presence alone might mend their shared heartache. On the third evening, a storm rolled gently across the Carolina coast, bringing soft rain that tapped rhythmically on the cabin's old tin roof. Jacob, concerned for Duke and Pumpkin, opened the porch door, inviting them inside with a quiet, reassuring voice. At first, Duke did not respond, his attention still fixed toward the ocean's restless waves. Jacob waited patiently, the doorway open, the warmth of the cabin reaching out invitingly. Minutes passed, each seeming longer than the last, until finally Duke slowly stood, his muscles stiff from days of inactivity. He paused, gazing deeply into Jacob's gentle eyes, as if quietly assessing whether to trust once more. Pumpkin clung softly to Duke's side, her small, inquisitive eyes wide and vulnerable, mirroring Duke's uncertainty. At last, Duke stepped slowly forward, crossing the threshold into the warm interior of the cabin, Pumpkin faithfully following close behind. Inside, the flickering fireplace cast gentle shadows across worn wooden floors and simple furniture, creating a comforting sanctuary. Jacob laid out blankets, speaking softly and reassuringly, as Duke cautiously lay down, his heavy head resting gently on his front paws. Pumpkin quickly nestled into the curve of Duke's chest, a small sigh of relief leaving her tiny body. Jacob knelt close by, his voice a quiet murmur as he shared the story he'd learned from news reports, the story of Sarah Miller, the little girl whose bright laughter and golden curls once filled the Miller family's now silent home. At Sarah's name, Duke raised his head sharply, his dark eyes bright with recognition and pain, a faint whimper escaping his throat. Pumpkin shifted anxiously, her tiny paws pressing gently into Duke's fur, as if sharing his sorrow. Jacob paused, heart aching with compassion, realizing the depth of Duke's devotion to the child he had lost. "I know how deeply you must miss her," Jacob whispered softly, reaching out with gentle fingers to stroke Duke's soft ears. "She must have been very special to you both." Duke leaned slightly into Jacob's touch, his eyes holding a mixture of trust and profound grief, silently confirming the depth of their bond. Jacob continued quietly, sharing memories of warmth and love, imagining aloud the joy Duke and Pumpkin had once known, hoping these gentle stories might begin to ease their heavy hearts. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a shift occurred. Duke's tense body gradually relaxed under Jacob's gentle touch, the rhythm of his breathing steadier, calmer. Pumpkin purred softly, a fragile yet hopeful sound, her tiny head nuzzling deeply into Duke's fur, finding comfort in the warmth between them. Jacob felt deeply moved, knowing trust had begun to bloom once again in Duke's guarded heart. As the storm quieted outside, Jacob's voice became a soft hum, a gentle lullaby filling the cabin's peaceful silence. Duke's eyes drifted slowly shut, restful sleep finally overtaking him. Pumpkin, soothed by the warmth and closeness, fell asleep, curled safely against Duke's chest. Jacob sat back quietly, heart swelling with tenderness, grateful for the healing trust now binding the three of them together. In that quiet space of shared understanding, they had begun to heal together. In the days following their first night indoors, the cabin at Cedar Cove slowly transformed from Jacob Thompson's solitary refuge into something more profound, a haven of quiet healing. Duke, the German shepherd whose deep, soulful eyes still occasionally reflected shadows of grief, began exploring the small cottage with cautious curiosity, his muscular frame gradually regaining its strength. Pumpkin, ever delicate and cautious, now boldly followed Duke, her vibrant orange fur brighter with each passing day, tiny paws padding softly against wooden floors. Jacob watched them warmly, his gentle blue eyes reflecting pride and affection at their quiet progress. With his lean, sun-kissed frame and soft-spoken manner, he moved carefully around the cabin, allowing Duke and Pumpkin to set their own pace. Trust was a fragile thing, Jacob knew, healing even more delicate. Still, their gradual openness filled him with hope, though he could still sense lingering sadness beneath Duke's quiet composure, hidden behind the gentle wag of a tail or Pumpkin's hesitant purr. Though the animals had begun accepting Jacob's meals, their appetites slowly returning, Duke's thoughtful gaze would still drift toward the ocean, as if drawn by an invisible, sorrowful memory. Pumpkin sensed Duke's melancholy, often curling close beside him on the porch, as though her tiny presence alone might shield him from pain. Jacob understood their grief, and an idea slowly took shape within him, rooted deeply in compassion. It was a clear Saturday morning when Jacob carried out his quiet plan. The sky above was gentle, painted with soft blues and calm whites, the sea stretching endlessly before them in peaceful rhythm. Jacob stood beside his boat, its deck carefully decorated with a small bouquet of white lilies, symbolizing remembrance. Duke stood close by, his ears alert, eyes soft with trust and quiet uncertainty, while Pumpkin nestled comfortably between his paws. Jacob knelt gently beside Duke, softly murmuring, "Today, we remember them, the family you loved so deeply." Duke's eyes widened slightly, his gaze sharpening at Jacob's soothing voice. "It's okay," Jacob whispered softly, placing a reassuring hand on Duke's neck. "I promise, this will help." They stepped aboard quietly, the boat rocking gently beneath their weight. Duke's paws steadied him, powerful yet gentle, while Pumpkin pressed closer, eyes wide but trusting. Jacob steered the boat slowly toward open waters, stopping at a quiet spot where the water mirrored the clear sky above. He let the gentle waves guide them into stillness, a hushed moment suspended between sea and sky. Standing at the bow, Jacob gently lifted the bouquet, gazing solemnly into the tranquil waters. "This is for the Millers," he spoke softly, his voice warm with sincerity, carried gently by the wind. "For Peter, Emily, and especially Sarah, whose kindness and love touched more lives than she could ever know." As Jacob gently laid the lilies upon the water, they drifted gracefully, their white petals a bright contrast against the deep blue waves. Duke stepped cautiously closer, his head tilted slightly, eyes filled with quiet wonder and sorrowful remembrance. Pumpkin, too, raised her tiny head curiously, her whiskers trembling gently, as though sensing the weight of this solemn moment. Silence settled softly around them, a comforting quiet, broken only by the soft rhythm of the ocean's breath. Jacob glanced down, noticing Duke's careful gaze fixed upon the drifting flowers, an expression of quiet gratitude and relief visible in his deep amber eyes. Slowly, almost reverently, Duke leaned forward, nose touching the surface lightly, as if offering a gentle farewell of his own. Jacob knelt beside him, placing a comforting hand gently upon Duke's back, feeling the quiet warmth pass between them. "They loved you both deeply," Jacob whispered softly, his voice thick with emotion. "And you'll always carry their love within you." For several long moments, they remained there, held gently by the rhythm of the ocean, united in shared remembrance and quiet healing. Pumpkin, nestled close, watched with wide, solemn eyes, her fragile form offering warmth and comfort to Duke's gentle strength. As the sunlight shifted slowly across the waves, bathing them in golden warmth, Jacob turned the boat back toward shore, feeling a sense of peaceful closure settle over them. Duke sat quietly by Jacob's side, his strong frame leaning slightly into the comforting presence of his new companion, Pumpkin curled softly at their feet. Returning home, the cabin felt warmer, brighter somehow, as though a weight had quietly lifted. Duke's eyes seemed clearer now, still shadowed by loss, but softened by gentle acceptance. Pumpkin purred quietly, her tiny body nestled comfortably against Duke, sensing the quiet peace finally blooming within them. Jacob smiled softly, grateful for the quiet strength and resilience that had brought them here. Together, beneath the calm Carolina sky, they had honored memories, shared sorrow, and begun to heal. Now, side by side, they would continue forward, step by small, hopeful step, guided by love, comforted by remembrance, and united by the quiet bond of a newfound family. In the gentle rhythm of days that followed, Cedar Cove's quiet charm grew even brighter. Jacob Thompson, whose kindness had always quietly shaped his life, found himself profoundly changed, his heart warmed by the presence of his new companions. Duke, the German shepherd, strong and dignified, now carried himself with renewed confidence, the shadow of sorrow gradually lifting from his dark, expressive eyes. Pumpkin, the little orange kitten whose fragile purrs now grew stronger, often perched contentedly on Duke's shoulders, her playful spirit breathing fresh joy into the cabin's cozy warmth. One sunlit morning, Jacob woke early, the soft glow of dawn slipping through his curtains. He stretched leisurely, a quiet smile crossing his gentle face as he heard familiar paws patting softly against the wooden floor. Duke appeared at his bedside, alert yet gentle, his large eyes bright with anticipation. Pumpkin nestled on Duke's broad back, blinking sleepily but comfortably secure in her protector's presence. Jacob reached out, scratching gently behind Duke's ears and whispering softly, "Today's the day, buddy. You and Pumpkin officially become family." Duke's tail wagged slowly, his quiet joy mirrored in Jacob's soft expression, Pumpkin's tiny purr joining in a quiet chorus of happiness. That afternoon, Jacob drove Duke and Pumpkin into town, pulling up beside the small, cheerful animal shelter on Main Street. Jennifer Brooks, the shelter's warm-hearted and cheerful director, greeted them with her signature bright smile, her short, curly brown hair framing her friendly, welcoming face. "Jacob, you're early," she teased gently, her bright hazel eyes sparkling. "Couldn't wait, could you?" Jacob laughed softly, his cheeks warm as he glanced down at Duke. "I guess not," he admitted, affection clear in his voice. Inside the shelter, Jennifer handed Jacob official adoption papers, her voice gentle yet authoritative as she explained each step. Duke sat patiently beside Jacob, alert and watchful, while Pumpkin curiously sniffed the shelter's cozy office. As Jacob signed each form, he felt a profound sense of responsibility settle gently over him, matched only by the quiet joy of officially claiming these two beautiful creatures as his own. Jennifer smiled warmly, softly declaring, "Congratulations, Jacob. Your family's grown by two special souls today." Jacob felt his heart swell with pride and gratitude, gently stroking Duke's fur, feeling a sense of peace finally taking root deep within them all. In the weeks that followed, Duke and Pumpkin became familiar sights around Cedar Cove, their quiet presence often accompanying Jacob as he moved through town. Neighbors, drawn by the gentle strength of Duke and Pumpkin's playful charm, frequently stopped Jacob to offer affectionate pats or curious questions, their voices filled with warmth and admiration. Young children especially adored Duke's gentle patience, often gathering to stroke his glossy fur, Pumpkin delighting them with her spirited antics. Jacob watched these interactions quietly, deeply moved by how Duke and Pumpkin's resilience had already begun to inspire healing within their close-knit community. On peaceful evenings, Jacob often took Duke and Pumpkin down to the shore, their steps comfortable and familiar along the soft sand. Duke would pause thoughtfully at the water's edge, eyes fixed calmly toward the horizon, the ocean now a quiet companion rather than a source of sorrow. Pumpkin, with boundless curiosity, chased the tiny waves, her joy infectious, often coaxing a gentle playfulness from Duke's dignified reserve. Jacob stood close, his soft blue eyes watching warmly, heart filled with quiet contentment as laughter and love gently washed over them, soft as the evening tide. Word of their story quietly spread through Cedar Cove, gently carried by whispers of resilience, compassion, and the transformative power of companionship. Soon, their story became a quiet inspiration, a reminder that even after great sorrow, hearts could be made whole again through love and trust. Jacob noticed small but meaningful changes throughout the community, a kinder word spoken, more compassionate actions taken, as the residents were gently reminded of the profound connection between humans and animals, quietly embodied by Duke and Pumpkin. One golden evening, Jacob sat peacefully on his porch steps, Duke lying comfortably beside him, eyes soft and tranquil, Pumpkin curled cozily between Duke's paws. Jacob's gentle voice broke the comfortable silence, soft but deeply sincere. "You too taught me something precious," he murmured warmly, stroking Duke's head gently. "That love and loyalty can heal even the deepest wounds." Duke lifted his head, amber eyes meeting Jacob's soft gaze with gentle understanding, Pumpkin's quiet purr weaving softly between them like a promise of lasting warmth. In that gentle moment, beneath the peaceful Carolina twilight, Jacob knew they had found home, not just a physical place, but a quiet refuge in each other's hearts. They had faced storms and loss, but together, they had built something quietly beautiful, a testament to courage, healing, and the extraordinary strength found within the bonds of family. Sometimes, life brings us through storms we never imagined we could weather, but within those hardships lie lessons of loyalty, love, and quiet courage. Duke and Pumpkin showed us that healing comes from trust, patience, and the gentle bonds we build with those around us. If their journey touched your heart and inspired you, please consider subscribing, so together we can continue to share stories of hope, compassion, and the incredible strength found within every act of kindness.